It's so important for them to know that they're really not alone, and that no matter what anyone says, it's not their fault if they're faced with these issues. And even if it seems difficult, they should reach out for help, because there are organizations, there are people who can help them and who can walk alongside them and help them through that journey.
Hi everyone, you're with Life Online and I'm Panchali Lankon. Today we're joined by Sashi Schaffter, founder of ESTER. It's an advocacy organization that aims to counter abuse and exploitation in Sri Lanka. She comes from a legal background, she holds an LLB and an LLM in human rights, and right now you're a research consultant. Hi Sashi!
Hi Panchali! Hi everyone!
So tell me a little bit about ESTER.
ESTER is an advocacy organization, and we aim to counter abuse and exploitation through a variety of means, such as awareness workshops, but also legal advocacy and working with stakeholders.
What made you start ESTER?
For me, I always wanted to work in human rights law. As you mentioned, my background is in human rights law. And when I moved back to Sri Lanka after completing my legal education in the UK, I started thinking about the best way to bring about some meaningful change in Sri Lanka. And so it took a lot of planning and a lot of experience and learning, but that's how ESTER came in.
A very important aspect of this, if you are a victim or a survivor of abuse, or you've ever subject to bullying or harassment, you have a question of what then?
Definitely, and that was actually my primary motivation for starting ESTER. It was, well, if I were facing this, how would I feel? I'd feel very alone. So then what can we bring about to make people who experience this feel a little less alone and feel a little bit supported? I think that's really, really important, because it's so difficult to reach out for help when you don't really know who to go to. And that becomes so much harder when you're a child. If you're a teenager and you're faced with these issues, it's so daunting, and especially if you feel that unfortunately you can't speak to your parents about it, or you can't speak to your teachers about it because you're afraid of them blaming you for whatever has happened to you. That's unfortunately all a part of our culture. So definitely, when advocating for a better response to some of these issues, we can't lose sight of mental health, because what would victims and survivors really face? That mental struggle of feeling isolated, feeling alone, and it leads to depression. It can even lead to suicide. So mental health is so important, and I think again this comes down to culture. So removing some of the negative stigma around mental health, making it acceptable and positive really to even seek help if you're having a hard time. And I have to say this is very important for boys and for men, because this stereotypical view of men having to be tough and strong all the time, not being able to show emotion, that thing of boys don't cry, is really, really harmful, because what does that lead to? It leads to all of these pent-up emotions. It leads to men who suffer in silence, and there are, men have higher suicide rates. Men have higher rates of depression. And whenever you read articles about men who committed suicide, the one common theme is their friends and family never knew something was even wrong. So with mental health stigma, we really need to make it acceptable to just speak out, to reach for help when you need it, for everyone, regardless of age and gender and all of these other factors.
So what do you think as an organization, what do you think Sri Lankans can do to make it better? In terms of maybe law reforms, in terms of maybe starting off somewhere small like schools, what needs to be done?
So something really simple which would actually fix a lot of problems is introducing something like a sex offenders registry, which we have in other countries such as the UK. This makes it easier to track offenders, and it especially protects children that they might be exposed to. Now, over the lockdown period last year, so in 2020 April, there was an incident where a baby was brutally raped. And the perpetrator in that instance had a history of doing this, but in Sri Lanka we don't keep track of these individuals. So we could very easily prevent them from committing these types of crimes again and again and again if we had a registry where we could keep track of them. Now, the NCPA has made proposals on this, but unfortunately nothing has really come about.
I guess it's very important to unlearn certain behavior. So how does education help that?
Even, teaching young people about relationships, about values such as respect, empathy, and trust. A really common issue in Sri Lanka, which is horrifying, is the non-consensual sharing of intimate images. Now, if the individuals in those images or videos are underage, then you're veering into very dangerous territory. That's child pornography. And the term child pornography itself is no longer used in the UK now. It's called child sex abuse material. And that issue could easily be fixed if children were taught about respect and about things like trust in a relationship. No one talks about how to have a romantic relationship, right? You're just told not to, actually, when you're in school. But if there were education and awareness programs where kids were taught about just even things like bullying in school, it's rampant. I mean, I remember it being there when I was in school. And all of those things could be countered, actually, if kids were taught simple values. I think those are sometimes forgotten. It's so important for them to know that they're really not alone, and that no matter what anyone says, it's not their fault if they're faced with these issues. And even if it seems difficult, they should reach out for help, because there are organizations, there are people who can help them and who can walk alongside them and help them through that journey.
ESTER sounds like such a great initiative. So just to close everything up, how can people get involved?
Our primary social media platform currently is Instagram. It's the one that gives us the greatest reach at the moment. We have a link in our Instagram bio. So the Instagram handle is ESTER_org. And anyone can sign up to volunteer. We're welcoming of everyone, regardless of background, regardless of their talents and skills, and we will place them based on their strengths and see how they can contribute to our work.
Thanks, Sashi. It's been such a great interview, and wish you all the luck with ESTER organization, and thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for inviting me.